Mr. Stapleton is excused. Mr. Lamoran.
Here.
Mrs. Weicker.
Here.
Mr. Sollers is also excused. Ms. Molnar.
Here.
Mayor Prevey.
Here.
Ms. Riley.
Here.
Mr. Avery.
Here.
Mr. Plato is excused. You have.
We have a quorum. Next item would be the Pledge of Allegiance. If we could ask Mr. Ramick to please lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item would be the acceptance of the agenda.
Motion to accept.
Support.
I have a motion by Mr. Ramick, supported by Mrs. Weicker. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. Motion passed. Next item would be number 4, motion to approve or deny MDNR Trust Fund grant application.
Motion to approve.
Support.
I have a motion by Mr. Ramick, supported by Mrs. Weicker. Any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Lamoran.
Through the chair to administration, just on the application itself, the 36,000 matching funds, where might be drawing those from?
Mr. Mayor, I think he's asking.
Specifically which line item, I'm not sure if we can tell you, but in effect, it's from the profit which we made selling the building on Ecorse Road.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. If I could, Madam Chair, through the chair to the Director of Parks, I guess, through the application, I don't see any state equalized value or appraised values listed in the application. Do we know those numbers, or who that would be
Did you
directed
hear-
to, I
Could you
guess?
come up, Mr. O'Malley? We need you to come up front to answer the questions, please. Absolutely. Anyone that has the answers is welcome to join in.
Yeah, I believe that the state equalized value is in the application somewhere, because I know we had to go through that exercise.
Madam Chair, I'm looking at page 3 of 9, where it's discussing both properties, and they're both, one SEV is blank, and the estimated appraised value is zeros.
It's on page 3, at the top. And it says state equalized value, SEV, 28,230 for parcel 1, and parcel 2 is $30,000.
Page 3 of the application itself?
Yes.
I'm sorry, the reason I ask is somebody must be incomplete. Let me see that, do you see? Anybody else?
I wasn't really looking. I thought you guys would read it, but I can check.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that then? I apologize.
Yes, it is page 3 of the application. And at the top, there's a section called parcel information table.
Yep, I'm looking at the
We do
the
not
same,
have that,
but it's
uh,
Mr. O'Malley. Could you
blank.
show that to Mr. Lamoran, please?
Is it okay if I?
Yes, come up, show it. And we need to also, in that case, we would need to get a new copy of this.
Yeah, this is, obviously, we're pulling information together.
And if we could get a
We
new
can get
copy
you a
for
copy of
each
that.
of us and for our records, if you could put it in our
Yes.
office, please. And how much was the amount of the first one?
The first one was $28,230, and parcel 2 was $30,000.
Okay, thank you. Okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I've been by the property, and I also pull off from Google Maps. I'm just, in the application, you state that Holland, it's anticipated to be a park. Is there any road access or direct access that we'll
Part
have?
of the agreement with the owner of parcel 1 is that there would be egress to the north side of his home that would run back into the property.
Would you be proposing cutting down his pine trees there, or would they go around the north side of
So
those
they would
pine
be-
trees?
They would be to the
North.
side of those pine trees.
Madam Chair, it wouldn't be in our intent to chop down any of the trees. The idea is to save the trees. It's a mature forest, there are very few left, so the whole purpose here is to save as many trees as possible while still allowing people access to enjoy the mature forest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anything else, Mr. Lamoran?
Yes, Madam Chair. Again, I thank the administration. The The property, again, an aerial, I don't know if you can help me define the 3.882 acres. Is that part of the application that you have?
Yes, well, you know, there's the front part of both of those properties are the homes of both of the parcel owners, and it's the back section of those properties.
Does it go along the fence line of the people along Susan and Continental? Does it go all the way to those
I
property
believe
lines?
It does, yes. We walked it the other day, and I think it does go all the way to the fence line.
From the area, is the dirt bike track or whatever is back there by the aerial view, is that part of it, or is that a different neighbor to the north?
Dirt bike track?
On the aerial, you can see.
It's not really a dirt bike track. It's just a path. And
It's got a
really-
figure eight section to it.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have any
Okay.
jumps, from what I could tell.
Okay.
Madam
Thank you.
Chair, on that one I can help. There's a clearing to the north. It would be everything to the south of that clearing to the fence line. It would also be to the fence line on the far east side of the properties, and roughly, not exactly, because the creek angles somewhat, but you see a creek on there, that's roughly the property line.
Okay. Thank you again. So the clearing in the middle of the tree line is also part of the
It is
whole-
not.
This clearing? So it's this tree line, that tree line is all part of the,
I don't know specifically what you have, but there's two wooded parcels, then a clearing, and then some more wooded parcels.
okay.
Everything east, or rather south of the clearing is what we're talking about, approximately 4 acres.
Yeah. Madam Chair, this drawing that we have with the applicant, we're constantly grabbing information last minute, and this would probably help explain it.
If you'd like to show that to him, you're more than welcome. If anyone else would like to see it also.
Madam Chair, if I could, when's the application due?
Monday.
Okay.
That's why we're having a special, part of the
Good.
special meeting. Here's the egress, access easement that we're talking about, so it's over here.
So it's this section right here of trees. Would that be fair? Or is it this section of trees? This is property as of 9425.
I think it's these. No,
Okay.
that-
So, but
I can't tell by the-
it goes the fence line along
I
Susan
don't
Street?
understand.
Yes.
I
Yes,
don't
okay,
really
so it'd have to be
know.
that section. Okay, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, sorry. I guess my question on this, and I know it's great that these grants are available to us, but, you know, it's still tax dollars in the end. In looking at the aerial photos from all of those areas, we have park areas located just to the south, around Chelsea Park area and Continental, and of course, we're only, you know, maybe a mile from Pat Park to the east. I understand why we would be preserving, but unless, are we looking to preserve this, or, I mean, if you could help me understand how this would be a park if it's a standard, you know, mature stand of trees. How is it going to be a park?
It's more of a woodlands preserve than it is a park. And the idea would be not to develop it significantly, perhaps help out a little bit with the pathway that's through it. But the idea is not to take down trees and put playscapes in or anything like that. This is more of a woodlands area.
And don't we run the risk then of people dropping down their fences along Susan or Continental and enjoying that themselves, or, you know, making that into, I mean, how are we going to ever police that? I mean, we're not going to
You
send
mean police, I'm not sure I understand what the question is.
people taking down their fences and expanding their own yards into a nice natural nature preserve trees.
I
Madam
think
Chair?
that presupposes that somebody's going to do something like that.
Well,
Madam Chair?
unfortunately, I think the reason I asked, and I apologize, the reason I did ask is because we saw that with, 4 years ago, as the project was getting way under Morton View, and a lot of those, people just over the years had kind of naturally blended into mature tree stands. The city owns this property now, just like it had previously with that other property, and whatever in the future, whether we're setting ourselves up for, potential problems, so.
Madam Chair, it's my impression that if people put in a gate want to use a public park, that's perfect. That's exactly why we're building it. That's exactly why we're preserving it, so people can appreciate it, people can use it, people can experience a mature forest. There are very few of them left, and it's our obligation, in my view, to preserve this natural forest. Took God 200 years to make it. We tore down thousands of acres in a 5-year time frame just a few years ago. We've got to preserve what's left, and this is an opportunity to do so.
Any other questions, Mr. Lamb?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Is it there's another piece of property that's tied to this too, isn't that, hasn't that gentleman ever expressed interest in selling? I thought that just had come up at one point as well, or we're
I
not.
don't know if anyone's here with that information about anyone else selling. There is anyone else here to answer. Probably could have gotten that for you, but there's not anyone here. Anyone else have any questions? Mrs.
Madam
Trahan?
Chair, while he's looking, I just had a couple of questions. How long do we have, usually when we find out about these grants, I mean, why are we just getting it at the last minute here on this grant? I mean, do we have, like, do they offer them and you have a certain amount of time, you know, a year, 6 months? I mean, have you been researching this for a while? And
Haven't they been before us with it?
So the question is there a deadline? Yes, it's Monday.
no, I wondered how long we've had this opportunity to where we're not looking at this at the 11th hour to vote on this, because the reason I ask is because I don't think that this is the best use of this money. I think that we could use it in other parts of the city. I think, especially since this property appears to be landlocked, it's going to only serve realistically the neighborhood, which is Continental neighborhood or Continental Streets, or what streets does it back up to? I mean,
Susan and, which other one did you say?
Continental.
Well, they're off.
Susan and Continental.
right. And excuse me, and I think that in this time in our economy that, you know, with all the sparse resources, I think that we should be looking to things that will benefit the city as a whole, not just one neighborhood or, you know, 30 residents or 50 or 60 residents when we have 41,000 residents, whatever it is now. I just don't think that this is the best use of our money. I think we need to spread out money, even if it is a grant. I think there's other parts in the city that are more open and have more access, where more people would use them regularly. I understand that you're saying that we can use it by going, you know, you're going to make an egress or whatever, but realistically, it's going to really serve the people that are in that neighborhood. And I don't think tax dollars should be spent for a few. I think tax dollars should be spent, whether we're getting a grant for part of the money or not, should be spread out to more citizens than just one neighborhood.
Madam Chair,
Just,
with all respect, when the time comes, vote no if you don't like it. But the reality is, we've acquired about 11 and a half acres in the Morton View and Goddard Road area of forest to preserve those forests. We've recently acquired about 43 acres in the area of Pardee, south of Northline, largely to preserve those remaining forests. We've also bought back land that the previous administration had sold to build apartments at the corner of Goddard and Catherine and turned it into a park. And we acquired vacant land at Wick and Morton View and turned it into a park. And we turned a park at Monroe and I don't know what street that would be, but just south of Van Born, and turned it into a park. And I'm sure there are others. Those just come off the top of my head. We acquired land at Ecorse and Burr, whatever it was, and are turning it into a park with the Atlas Oil money. It's the direction of our administration to try to move to preserve green space as best we can and build additional parks so that people across the city can utilize them. With all respect, if you don't like the idea, vote no.
Madam Chair? To the administration, through the chair, I understand my right to vote yes or no, but I do represent by voting, you know, a certain percentage of the city. So my reasons, I think, should be noted of why I want to vote for something or not. And the other thing about this is that I think, especially since some of the money was going to be used from the Atlas Oil donation to the parks. For instance, I would rather use some of the money to have a fireworks or something for the citizens that we couldn't do that, or, you know, the reasons that we couldn't, to benefit more citizens. That's what I'm trying to say, is more citizens as a whole, not just a specific group of citizens.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Ramick?
I believe that what we're looking at here is we were applying for a grant. We don't even know if we're going to get the grant. I think the whole idea today is whether or not we're going to get the grant, apply for the grant, then we can argue the fact, do we end up buying the property or not? And with that being said, I call a vote.
Okay. Okay, I believe then someone, you made the motion, call for the question? Is that what
For
you?
the question.
Madam Chair? I'm taking a class right now, and it says that if you take away rights of anyone, you have to have a vote on it. So if you call a question,
Okay.
it has to be voted on amongst the council whether you can call the question or not.
Okay.
So
So we
I'd
can
like
do
to-
that now?
Yes,
Is it okay if I do that now?
absolutely.
Okay. So Mr. Ramick has called for the question. All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed say no.
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 Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Remick.
Yes.
Mrs. Brandana.
No.
Mr. Stapleton.
Yes.
Mr. Lammerin.
No.
Mrs. Weicker.
Yes.
Ms. Molnar.
Yes.
You have 4.
I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Ramick to approve the item.
Support, I supported it.
I'm saying someone has to support if you want to. I have support by Mrs. Weicker. Any discussion? All in favor signify by, I'm
I
sorry.
just have one question. On the, Mr. Lammerin had asked what the state equalized value was, and we didn't have those numbers on this. And he also asked about the estimated appraised value, and we don't have the numbers. So my question is what we have in front of us what you're submitting, or is there something different that you're submitting and we don't have it?
What he
the
did was,
numbers?
well, what he's going to do is he has that number there, and ours needs to correlate with hers. He's going to make us a copy of exactly what we need, and he's wrote the numbers on his. I wrote the numbers on mine. It's in the record.
Does everyone have the numbers?
I believe so. He said them 2 or 3 times. I think everyone should have them.
Okay, I
So we
just
did-
wonder
We
because...
did clarify that.
Okay, well,
far as
I don't
I-
have the numbers, I have no idea. And I know that I'm not voting, but I do have to keep the records, and I do have to be responsible for these things as they go forward.
Well, you're only responsible for accepting the records, not if the numbers are correct. But here you go. If there's any other number you need, we'll be glad to give it to you.
Well, that's my question. Are these all zeros? The rest of them are correct, these are all zeros?
The only thing Mr. Lammerin asked for was the 2 SEVs.
But I'm asking, is this page correct the way it's going to be submitted? Because those numbers were missing, so are the rest of the numbers missing? And
Mike,
the
can
council
we
should
see your
know
page? Yes,
when
we,
vote. That's my point.
well, we can decide what we vote, I think.
So would you like me to bring forward?
Yes, let me see what you have. Okay, this is what they're submitting. And we will all have a
These
copy
numbers-
of it.
Okay, and no one has these numbers, so you understand my problem?
Right, he showed it to us, and we will all have it. So if you want to write them down, that's fine.
Madam
I'll
Chair,
just
may I
take
get a
a copy
copy?
of
Okay,
Oh,
we're going to, I'll get a copy of it, so.
Well, we'll make sure we get
I said everyone's going to have a copy of what he just showed us, so, right. We're going to have a new
But the point
sheet.
is when they go to vote on it, how can they vote on it when they don't know what the numbers are?
He showed them to us. Well, okay, we don't want to trust you, fine. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no.
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 Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Remick.
Yes.
Mrs. Brandana.
No.
Mr. Stapleton.
Yes.
Mr. Lammerin.
No.
Mrs. Weicker.
Yes.
Ms. Molnar.
Yes.
You have 42.
And Mike, I trust that we will have those first thing in the morning in our office.
We can do them right now if you'd like.
You'll do it right now? That'd be wonderful. And you can leave us all a copy, please?
Will do.
Thank you. The next item is number 5, motion to approve or deny a tentative agreement and memorandum of understanding between the City of Taylor and the Taylor Command Officers Association of Michigan.
Motion to approve?
Support.
I have a motion by Mr. Ramick, supported by Mr. Stapleton. Any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Mrs. Brandana.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, in the event that they call the question before I'm done, I just would like the public or anybody that that's listening to hear what's happening here. We tried to talk about stuff that's concerning us, and we're being cut short,
Mrs.
and three
Brandana,
people are
Mrs.
deciding.
Brandana, you may
Thank
speak
Madam
on
Chair.
this item.
I'm speaking on the item. Before
No.
I get cut off, I want to say what's going on
Mrs.
here.
Brandana, you're out of order. You need to speak on the item before you. If you want to do that
Thank you,
under
Madam
open
Chair.
business, you're welcome to.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to talk about the contract. I think that we're just moving around, we're just playing a shell game here. We're giving them earlier retirement date in order, from what I can tell, so we can have the traffic detail so we can balance the budget. So, and then we'll be paying into this into forever. So I just think that this is a bad idea. I think it's a shell game, and I think that's purposeful, that it's put on a special meeting night, and so who knows who's watching, and I just think that this is terrible to be brought to the council in this way, and it has so many things wrong with it. I'm sure that I'll be cut off, so I'll let it go at that, and if anybody wants to call me and ask me, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Lamoran?
Thank you. Madam Chair, my biggest concern with what we're looking at here is again, adding, 3 years to the life of retirements. And, this happens within the education world all the time, as far as trying to get the early outs and get the lower people in to continue doing the job. So I understand the concept of what we're doing here, but my biggest concern is that what's been continually addressed in the letters from the Rodwin Consulting Company is that the savings that is trying to be driven home is only based on not replacing the people that may take the early out. So I don't know if you or the administration would like to address whether or not that's the plan, if there's a plan that if people retire, we won't replace them as a cost-saving strategy to the city, because that's really my main concern with.
That wasn't
we're
addressed
seeing.
to us. But
Madam Chair, I'd
if
be
the mayor would
pleased
like to
to,
speak on that.
First, if I may, I would like to address Ms. Brandana's remark. At the last study session, we talked about bringing this, we discussed what the contract would look like, the purpose of it, what the 5 proposals are, and we talked about the fact that we would call a special study session to do this, to show good faith to the union, since they stepped up, opened their contract, which wasn't even expired, and gave the city things which it wanted. We would have a special study session for the cents. So for you to go on TV and tell people we're doing this to trick people is simply not correct. You were at the study session. Mr. Lamran wasn't, so perhaps he didn't know that happened, but you were there, and what you're doing is disingenuous, and I shame on you.
Madam Chair.
With regard to Mr. Lamran's question, it is our intent, and we've been saying it for years, that we're not hiring additional police officers until we straighten out their pension plan. And once we straighten out that pension plan, they will not be going into this plan, therefore, they will not be replaced. It doesn't mean we won't hire additional police officers, but those additional police officers won't go into this pension plan. They'll go into some different pension plan, which won't be expensive, and the cost savings that are identified will be achieved.
Mrs. Brandana?
Madam Chair.
Let me one final point with the pension, if I may. A number of years ago, the city, for whatever reason, chose to give early retirements, but they gave them phantom time, if you will. They allowed them to get full credit that they didn't actually do. Credit for years they never served. This doesn't do that. If they choose to leave early, they get their pension reduced accordingly. It's about 2.8, as I recall, percent. If they leave 3 years early, geez, I wish it was a different percentage, 2.8 times 3, whatever that is, 8% reduction in their final average pay. So they leave early, but they get less. The former pension plan, they left early, but they got the same as if they had stayed. This is not one of those kind of deals. This is a saving to the taxpayers, and again, we have to fix our pension plan, and we will, as long as I'm mayor at least. We will continue to endeavor to do so.
Are you finished, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mrs. Brandana?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I think that I've heard for 4 years now about the other administration giving an early retirement and how terrible it is, and then I see this come before me, and we did talk about the last study session, but I didn't hear you say that we're going to have a special study session on it, especially since we're going to have a meeting in 2 days. So I don't know why we need to rush this through today. Is there a reason for that?
I don't know, Mrs. Brandana. The administration asked to put it on with this other one, and it was stated at our last study session that they may ask us for a special meeting. And they did come in, the union and various people, to answer any and all questions we had on the contract at that time, and they did tell us exactly what's in our paper today. So we were given due time, to ask questions. Well, we were given almost 2 weeks to, if we had questions on what they brought to us, and that we may have an early one. So,
Madam Chair?
Mrs. Brandano.
We weren't given anything 2 weeks ago. We talked about it for just a few minutes. We were given this just a few days ago.
They've
This contract.
they
First time.
stated, the very items that are in this contract were stated, and we had people there. They came in to talk to us if we had any questions. And they came in and talked about the contract. They told us those few items, the early, and not going into the traffic detail with any overtime, those were stated to us. So I'm saying we did know those items were coming up. So if you're asking why they're rushing it, then.
Madam Chair, the document here also talks about how they're changing, so the requirements to pick a lieutenant, and I wondered, about that. Why are we doing that? Why are we going around and around the previous system and having it be appointed instead of being the highest test score? Because I think the citizens are better served by the higher test score than a political decision, perhaps.
Well, let me
Or-
see if perhaps someone that's here could answer that for us.
Thank you.
Is someone here that could answer that question on why or whom would like to have that changed, if the chief or someone else, or the mayor, if someone's here, maybe that was privy to that information?
I can explain to you why, and perhaps the chief will come and explain to you why it matters to him.
I'm saying
but-
possibly that was something the chief would, I don't know.
Well, I
I'm saying-
want to respond if I may, Chair, and the chief can talk too. Why? Basically, we take a test, and whoever the people are on the top of the list, we will have the right to choose among the top 3. We currently have that right to do it for commanders. Now we, under this contract, will have the right to do it for lieutenant. It doesn't mean we're going to hire my brother-in-law, because my brother-in-law isn't on the police department and he's not in the top 3. It doesn't mean we're going to hire the dumbest guy, because he wouldn't be on the top 3. What it means is among the top 3, the chief will be able to pull together his team of leaders, given from the best and the brightest, so that he can pull together a team to manage a very difficult and complex department. Chief, if you'd like to add to that, you're more than welcome.
Madam Chair?
Mrs. Brandano.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, what we're not talking about here tonight is the overtime. The people that are going to do the traffic detail now would be the commanders, which I believe is the highest pay officers in the city. So they will be collecting overtime for their hours at the highest rate of pay. And although it doesn't go into their retirement, they're still, which is one of the things that you complain about, that the administration talks about sometimes, is that these men are walking away with big salaries. And so how do we work that into this? What is the reason behind that?
If I may, Madam Chair, I've never once complained about the salaries. I think working people overtime is a great opportunity for them, and it's cheaper for the city than hiring new people. So I've never once objected to paying overtime. Our concern is the overtime being factored into their final average compensation, making their pension higher than where their wage was. It's wrong, in my opinion, that people can retire at more money than they make when they're working. That's what the current system provides. This helps to fix that problem. Police command officers have been working on overtime to write these tickets for I don't even know how long, 15 years perhaps. So there's no change there. The only difference is the overtime doesn't go into their pension, pushing their pension artificially high, again, in excess of 100% of base wage. So it's a part of a solution, not an addition to the problem.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other questions? Mr. Lamren?
Chairman Pro Tem reminded me of something. I don't know if Mr. Wood or Mr. Clark or the mayor. Number 3, under the traffic program, the memorandum of understanding under the traffic program. I was kind of confused on this because it says, in that regard, the city shall not withhold from said wages plus 10% the 5% pension contribution. Can you explain that?
Mine doesn't say 10%, mine just said shouldn't put 5%. You said 10%?
Yeah, I saw it again later in the other in another page, under the traffic detail on page 2, but on the memorandum of understanding regarding COAM traffic detail program. Number 3.
We
Okay,
need to have that corrected too, also.
so it's just,
Which page is it?
Number 3 of the memorandum.
so Madam Chair, just based on just the fact that their overtime isn't going into final average compensation, they're not being deducted the 5% towards retirement costs.
Just for
The overtime, to